Hi, Chandler Crouch here. I am with Rockie Gilley. Rockie is a candidate for the Tarrant County Appraisal District Board of Directors seat. And I wanted to just take a moment so that the people that are voting in this election could get a chance to get to know Gilley a little bit. And so, Gilley, I've got a handful of questions for you. But before we dive too deep, I was going to see if you might be able to just provide a little introduction for yourself, just so the folks can understand a little bit about who you are and where you've come from.
Okay, well, I'm a lifelong resident of Tarrant County, and recently retired after 40 plus years in the IT industry. From kind of like started to the bottom and made it a little ways up in the ranks. And like I say, recently retired, and just interested in the issue that we have, especially in Tarrant County, with property tax appraisals and our property tax situation.
Very good. Well, I know this election is kind of unique. The citizens don't get a chance to vote in it. This is something where only the city council members and school board trustees and locally elected officials at the taxing entities are the only ones that get to place the votes. And so so we're going to have those people watch this video, and we might have some citizens watch the video, just some taxpayers. But let's just speak directly to the folks that can place the votes, the city council members and school board trustees and those sort of folks. And so, Rockie, if you could just give us some insight as to why you're running and why you are asking for their vote, then I think that would help quite a bit.
Well, a few years ago, I served on the city council in the small city that I live, Kennedale, Texas. And I became aware of some issues when we would get our budget and we would get our reports from TAD along in the summer. The abnormal amount of property that was under protest. Some years it would be close to 5% of the appraised property in our city, and our total appraised, we're on the books appraisal, say a little over $1 billion, right around $1 billion. It fluctuates, and some years our property tax under protest, the valuation under protest, would be $60-70 million, which to a small city like Kennedale is, with our tax rate, could be anywhere from $450,000 to $300,000, which makes the budget more challenging. You don't know how those protests are going to turn out. I got to looking into it a little bit more and talking to some knowledgeable people, and found that Tarrant County has, if not the highest protest rate in the state of Texas, one of the highest, and also has one of the highest rates of decisions going in favor of the taxpayer. So that tends to indicate that there's a problem, an endemic problem with getting a valid appraisal in Tarrant County. And at the nut of this, appraisals, it's software. That's sort of what it is. And I think that's something that I would bring to the board, is a background in IT. I know there's a number of retired politicians on the board, realtors, maybe a civil engineer, but I don't think there's anyone with a strong background in IT that can sort of evaluate and report on that situation. So I think that's something I bring. Also, I'm not really beholden to any big interest. Generally, the TAD director board, by the voting of the taxing entities, is controlled by the largest taxing entities who have the most vote. The way it breaks down, as near as I could tell, this is generalities. When you have about $1 billion on the property tax rolls, your entity gets about 5 votes. So that's how it's broken down. Tarrant County, for example, 515 votes. City of Kennedale, 5 votes. So it's been controlled in the past by the larger taxing entities, that some in these smaller entities feel like the TAD board has been less than responsive to their needs. So I think that's something else that I bring. I'm not a lifelong politician. I served on the city council for a few years, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. So that's something else. Is I bring a new set of eyes to the situation.
Very good. Well, you said a lot of things that I would love to talk about. I think it's great that you've been able to come up with a rule of thumb for how much property value equates to how many votes the entity gets. And so about $1 billion in property value equals 5 votes. This is just such a unique election that most people don't have a clue on, how the voting system works or anything like that. But to have some kind of rule of thumb on that just gives you some context. Because to me, $5 billion or $1 billion sounds like a lot of property, but that only gets an entity 5 votes, huh?
Yeah, that's that's rough and tough. It might be 6, it might be 4.5, but that's sort of how it seems to break out. Just based on looking at the numbers, looking at a few cities, looking how many votes they have, what they're on the tax rolls at. So the other thing is, it's extremely complex. The amount of property is residential business property, business personal property, mineral interest. I mean, the number of entries for mineral interest in Tarrant County would make your head spin. So it's there's a enormous amount of tax accounts on the property rolls in Tarrant County.
How about that? Very good. Well, I love that you've identified an area that I bet other people at taxing entities have a concern about, which is trying to get a good number of how much property value is going to be taxed. And the level of uncertainty on that number is directly proportionate with how many protests are being filed in the area. And so to bring that perspective to the table and having had that experience on the city side seems valuable.
Yeah, to expand on that a little bit more. Now, the numbers are a little hard to get. They have to come from TAD, so they're a little bit fuzzy. The best information that I have is, say, from the 2020 tax year. I believe around 200-ish, 250-ish protests were filed before the ARB. That's sort of the little informal board that you go for, and the Tarrant County has the appraiser, or not. It's usually not an appraiser. They have a representative, and you have 5 citizen board, I believe. Usually 250,000. And then out of that, going to formal, the formal hearing in front of a district judge is somewhere around 90,000 go forward. So that at the heart of it tells you that either people like to waste their time going and subjecting themselves to that. And you have to put up a significant amount of money to go to the formal hearing in front of a district judge. It's somewhere in the tune of $500-600 for each piece of property. That's for residential. Business may be a whole different area. They may be charged more. So this is not something that people do lightly. To take time off of work, to take time away from your family, to go down there and sit in line and go in front of the board. So this is indicative of there is a problem with the certified appraisal rolls in Tarrant County, and has been for some period of time. Anyone that wants to do a simple web search on Tarrant County appraisal districts and problems, you'll have an afternoon of reading in front of you.
How about that? Well, Now, I mentioned there's two different groups of people that might watch this video, and really the people that we need to focus on first are the folks we've already been talking about, the folks that are at the taxing entities that will actually get to place the votes. But there are a fair number of taxpayers that are very concerned about property taxes and want to play some kind of role in this. And so the only thing that a taxpayer can do is go talk to their city councilman, talk to somebody on the board of trustees at the school district, and urge them to place their vote for you or for the candidate of their choice. And so if you had to speak directly to the taxpayer, what's your message to them on why you're running, or what you would ask them to do, or how you would appeal to them?
Yes, that's one method. Get involved, learn how the system works. It is pretty arcane. When you learn how this board of directors is not really directly elected, they're selected by the taxing entities. The chief appraiser who reports to the board does the vote tally, which is kind of odd. It's this goes back to the early 1980s. Around 1980-81, when they changed, every local taxing entity used to have its own little appraisal board. And back 80-81, it was reformed and went to a countywide method. So get involved, learn how the system works, and contact your representative or director. And it would be not just school district, city council, TCC is a big role in it. Contact your county commissioner, and also the Tarrant County Hospital District. Every taxing entity has those, and ask for citizen representation on the Tarrant County Appraisal District. I mean, citizens need to be represented one way or the other, and it has to be indirectly. Unfortunately, that's what I would ask them to do.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought up those other entities. So often I'll just brush over them, not even mention Water District and Tarrant County College and the Commissioner Court, but their voting block is enormous. And now that I've got some kind of rule of thumb on how to calculate their property value, then man, those numbers just get big. It's you definitely don't want to ignore them. Well, Rocky, I've got, I would love to just keep talking, but we should probably wrap it up here pretty quick. Are there any other things that you want to talk about or that's important for you to share? Yeah.
This is sort of, I think this last election cycle, the bond issues in Tarrant County, a number of them failed, which is unheard of. For a school bond issue, the city of Fort Worth, 3 out of the 4 failed. The one that passed probably passed with 50 votes, somewhere in that vicinity, I believe.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and also statewide, bond issues failed in Plano. Bond issues failed at the school board in Leander and other areas. And so this is a warning. People are being taxed out of their homes. Property taxes are out of control. And one way under the current system, it's the system we have. I don't think it's a good system, but it's what we have now. One way is to ensure that you do have an accurate certified tax roll. And I believe in Tarrant County, we're a little bit falling short of that goal. Some property is on there at a much higher rate than it should be. Some property is on there at a lower rate. Some property doesn't get added in a timely manner. That's the issues that I see.
How about that? Well, those are great points. And I think you're right. It's related, but it's a little bit in a different topic of these bond issues. I'm glad that people understand that their property taxes are tied to those, because I think it's important for people to know. I mean, and whether it's worth the cost or not is a completely different topic, because sometimes they pass, and sometimes it's worth it. But
if people don't have faith in the system, if they're losing faith in it, they're going to tend to vote no against some needed improvements, some needed projects. When people don't trust the system or see that the system has a problem, you're asking for a difficult time going forward on either side of the issue.
That's a great point. I trust in the system is man. I love that you brought all that up, because it's something that I haven't really considered that much. But you're right. There's a lot of importance to make sure that things are run well, so that people have confidence in the system and we can get the things passed that need to be passed.
Another issue. There are some smaller taxing entities this year in Tarrant County that absolutely get no vote because they are so small. They don't reach that threshold, and they actually get no say in who the directors are. That's patently unfair. That's the system that we have. But that leads into the small entities that have 2, 3, 5, 15, 20 votes. Your citizens pay taxes just like the larger ones do, and they need a voice, and you need a voice. And one of my goals, if I was elected, is to respond to everyone fairly and equally. And an entity, a small entity like Lakeside, needs to be treated just as fairly as a larger entity like Fort Worth or Arlington ISD or Fort Worth ISD.
How about that? Well, Rocky, I can't thank you enough for your willingness to serve. My take on this is that the more people we have that are getting educated and playing a role in the system to try and help make our community a better place, the better off we all are, no matter what stance we have, no matter what, even if we disagree. That the involvement and your willingness to participate and to play a role in making your community a better place is something that I really appreciate. And I wish you the best of luck in this election. And I look forward to having more conversations, because I feel like you've touched on some things here that I'd love to learn more about. So thank you so much, Rocky.
I enjoyed it, Chandler. Thank you. Thank you for interviewing me. I appreciate it.